Well, the reason that I decided to, well, with all of my work, both books have been set in pretty much this little place called Knockemstiff, Ohio, which is southern Ohio, the place I grew up in, and really the only place that I know, enough about to write. I was born in 1954. I grew up there. I've never left that area. I'm 57 now. And I have a real affinity for just that place. Even though there's not hardly anything there, it's very even claustrophobic because it's surrounded by hills, a very small community. But it's still the only place that I know. And I decided when I, right after I began writing that that setting, the geography and everything was what interested me the most. Well, as someone once said, nothing happens nowhere. So place is important, to me anyway. And as far as, I guess with the nature thing in my work, it's, well, because there are, there's a lot of trees and fields and woods, hills, stuff like that around there. I can't really say that I myself am a great lover of nature or anything like that, but it's just, because of my choice of settings, nature is going to be involved. It's not a big town or anything like that. It is mostly nature there. The way that I would describe Arvin, Arvin is, to me, even though he commits several violent acts, he's a decent, good person. And when I began the novel, I sort of had this idea about writing a coming-of-age story which intersects with the story of two serial killers. And in the beginning, Arvin was, I had him as a much older person. But then, I thought about it a while and I moved him back in time a ways, made him younger. I think that if anybody in the book receives or gets some sort of redemption, or if there is a moment of hope at the end of the book, it's with Arvin, of course. He does manage to escape, which is one of the central themes that I always work with, this problem of being trapped in a situation and not being able to get out of it. And Arvin does get out of it. Arvin, he's had a very unfortunate life. Both of his parents have died. He lives with his grandmother now, and then, certain things happen that force him to leave home again. And that's when he meets up, eventually with the serial killers. Yeah, I look upon him as a good person. Well, I think they have several things in common. My characters do, anyway. For one thing, most of them are poorly educated, mostly poor people. I think, for the most part, as I mentioned, earlier, they all have this dream of escaping a situation that, maybe, whatever their life has brought them to. With Arvin, of course, he wants to return home, eventually. With Carl and Sandy, it's the serial killers. It's pretty much just escaping the boredom and humdrum quality of their lives, you know, because they pretty much, they go out on what they call a hunt, and they murder for a couple weeks, and then they return to southern Ohio, and you know, they spend the next 8 or 9 months building up enough cash and to go out and do it again. And that's, you know, they only come alive when that happens, when they're out on the road. But I think all of them are, you know, are pretty much just trying to escape something. You know, one of the things that interests me, you know, with people is that thing going on where a lot of people, you know, maybe when they're young, they have this ambition to, you know, I don't know, be a professional basketball player or something, and things never work out for them. And so, you know, I felt that way myself for a long, long time, that there I was working in this factory where my father had worked and my grandfather had worked, and there was no way out, you know. I mean, of course there really was. It's just that I couldn't find it. You know, and luckily for me, you know, eventually I did, but for a lot of people, that never happens. It was late. You know, I was 45 years old when I finally decided that I wanted to really try and get out of the factory. One of the reasons that I made this decision was as I said, my father had worked there, and he retired the year that I was 45. And I watched him go home, and that was pretty much it. It was like his life was almost over with. And at that time, I had been at the paper mill for 27 years. And you know, I just told myself, okay, I'm going to give it 5 years, and I'm going to work really hard at writing and see what happens. And if at the end of that time nothing does happen, I'll give myself permission to quit. So, you know, I began writing. By the time I was 50, I had published a few short stories, and then I applied to a writing program at Ohio State University. And that was a 3-year program, and it gave me enough courage, if nothing, to go ahead and leave the mill and go to grad school. And then I was lucky enough to have my first book published while I was in school, so that was pretty much how it started. Well, at the time I began writing the book, I was watching a lot of news on TV and, you know, reading the newspapers, and in America, sort of like a fundamentalist type religion has taken hold. And, you know, what I'm talking about is people who have, they believe in the Bible literally. You know, everything that is in the Bible they believe, which is, to me, kind of crazy. And so this thing has been, you know, it's taken hold and it's growing, and I was thinking about that, and I was just, I guess, decided to use religion as sort of a motif that runs through the book. And, well, another thing is that I view a lot of religious leaders and preachers and stuff as people who are using religion for ulterior motives, you know, either to gain money or power or sex or, you know, whatever, instead of using it for, you know, the right reasons. And, you know, it just became, you know, one of the recurring themes of the book is religion. It's not that I'm religious myself. It's just one of those things that I thought I could use, you know, as part of my story. And something I guess maybe wanted to get out of my system. you know, this anger against, say, for example, TV evangelist, that sort of thing. Yeah, a lot of the people probably aren't that beautiful in my book as far as, you know, looking up on them, you know, visually. But, you know, I mean, talking about their bodies is, I guess, just providing realistic details. I don't know. I really, that is a tough question. I don't think everybody's ever asked me that before. I've never thought about it before, that's for sure. Just, yeah, I guess just this, you know, just this part of showing the person as they really are, you know. You have to have a description. I mean, I try to make it so that the reader can see, you know, what they look like. But no, there isn't a lot of, you know, beauty in my book. It's gritty and it's violent, and a lot of bad things happen for the most part. And, you know, these aren't beautiful people who are doing this stuff.